The Galactic Military Academy had stood for 3,000 years, training the finest soldiers from 47 species across known space. Its halls gleamed with achievements, its walls whispered legends, and its instructors had seen everything the universe could throw at them. Or so they thought until humans arrived. Susan Chen stood in the sterile white chamber, her breath forming tiny clouds in the cold air. The improvisation test was legendary, a rite of passage that separated true warriors from mere cadets. Across the room, separated by a transparent barrier, Lucas Martinez waited in an identical chamber. Their eyes met briefly, and Lucas offered a slight smirk that Susan knew all too well. It was his "watch this" expression. Instructor Carvoth, a towering Zenthari with scales that shimmered like oil on water, observed from the control booth above. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he reviewed the human files once more. These strange bipeds from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star had only joined the galactic community 6 months ago. Yet they'd already caused 3 diplomatic incidents, revolutionized emergency medicine, and somehow convinced the cafeteria to stock something called hot sauce. Cadets, Carvoth's voice boomed through the speakers, translated instantly into English. The improvisation test has broken countless candidates. You will face a combat scenario with no weapons, no tools, and no assistance. You must survive for 10 minutes against automated defense drones. Failure means expulsion. Death means, well, we have excellent medical facilities. The other species candidates had their own strategies. The Kryn used their natural armor plating. The Vishari could phase through solid matter for brief moments. The Thulos possessed 4 arms and natural combat instincts that made them formidable even unarmed. Humans had soft skin, mediocre strength, and no natural weapons whatsoever. They were, by all galactic standards, absurdly fragile. "Begin," Carvoth commanded. In Susan's chamber, 3 drones materialized, hovering silently as their weapon systems powered up with an ominous hum. Each drone was programmed to inflict pain without causing permanent damage. A carefully calculated level of aggression designed to test combat instincts under pressure. Susan didn't run. She didn't adopt a defensive stance. Instead, she grabbed the test paper that had been sitting on the small podium beside her, the very document outlining the test parameters, and began folding it with quick, precise movements. Carvoth leaned forward, his translator struggling with the muttered human phrase, "Origami knife, just like Dad taught me." Within 15 seconds, Susan had transformed the paper into a rigid, pointed blade. The drones advanced, and she moved with surprising speed, her soft-soled boots silent on the floor. When the first drone fired a stun pulse, she was already rolling beneath it, coming up with the paper blade extended. The blade shouldn't have worked. Paper versus military-grade alloy should have been laughable, but Susan drove the edge into the drone's sensor port with such force and precision that the folded layers compressed into something remarkably hard. The drone sparked and dropped. In Lucas's chamber, a different approach unfolded. He'd torn his test paper into strips and was weaving them together with the drawstring from his uniform pants, creating what appeared to be a garrote. His engineering background showed in the efficient knots and the calculated tension. "Impossible," breathed Carvoth's assistant, a young Plexian whose skin flickered with disbelief. "Those drones are military grade. Paper cannot..." "Watch," Carvoth interrupted, all 4 eyes fixed on the humans. Lucas used his improvised garrote to catch a drone mid-flight, the paper composite catching on the housing and the string wrapping around its propulsion system. With a sharp twist, the drone's gyroscope failed, sending it crashing into its companion. But what truly shocked the observers was Susan's next move. She'd retrieved components from the fallen drones, using the sharp edge of her paper blade to pry open panels, and was now fashioning them into something new. Her fingers worked with steady confidence as she stripped wires, redirected power cells, and within 90 seconds had created a crude but functional electromagnetic pulse device. 1 pulse. Every remaining drone in her chamber dropped simultaneously. Lucas, meanwhile, had discovered that the transparent barrier between chambers was actually a conductive material. Using strips of his paper soaked in his own sweat for moisture and pieces of drone circuitry, he'd created a basic capacitor. The resulting shock overloaded his remaining drones through their shared communication network. Total time elapsed: 4 minutes, 37 seconds. Silence filled the observation booth. They weaponized the test itself. the Plexian finally whispered. They turned examination paper into killing tools. Karvoth's scales rippled, the Zenthari equivalent of a laugh. No, they did something more remarkable. They saw the test not as a limitation but as a resource. Every other species sees the empty chamber and thinks, I have nothing. Humans see it and think, I have everything. He pulled up Susan and Lucas's psychological profiles. Both showed the same trait that appeared across every human evaluated, an almost pathological refusal to accept resource scarcity. Humans had evolved on a death world where everything, predators, diseases, weather, even other humans, tried to kill them. They'd learned to turn anything into an advantage. When the chamber doors opened, Susan and Lucas emerged, breathing hard but uninjured. Other cadets from various species watched in stunned silence. A Kryn cadet, who'd used her natural armor to barely survive the full 10 minutes, stared at the humans with something approaching fear. Karvoth descended from the observation booth, his imposing form casting long shadows. In 3,000 years, he announced to the assembled cadets, only 17 candidates have ever completed the improvisation test in under 5 minutes. He gestured to Susan and Lucas. Today, I witnessed 18 and 19. He picked up a discarded piece of Susan's paper blade, examining its compressed, hardened edge with professional interest. The test asked you to improvise a weapon. Every species before you found something in their environment. Loose panels, broken equipment, environmental hazards. You two made the test itself into a weapon. Lucas shrugged, that infuriating human casualness that drove other species mad. Our homeworld's a mess, sir. We learned early. If it exists, it can probably kill someone if you try hard enough. Susan nodded, her expression more serious. My grandfather used to say the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't expect. What's less expected than stationary paper? Karvoth's scales rippled again. He'd been briefing his superiors about humanity's potential military applications. Now he understood why Command was both excited and terrified about Earth's admission to the galactic community. Humans didn't just think outside the box. They turned the box into a weapon, improvised explosives from its contents, and used the debris as shrapnel. Cadets Chen and Martinez, Karvoth said formally, welcome to advanced combat theory. Something tells me, he glanced at the disabled drones and the scattered remains of test papers, that you'll find the curriculum insufficient. As the humans left the chamber, the other species cadets parted like water, creating a path. Word would spread quickly through the academy. The humans had arrived, and the universe's understanding of improvised weaponry would never be the same. In his office later, Karvoth filed his report with a single addendum that would ripple through Galactic Command. Recommend we never, under any circumstances, give humans a truly desperate situation. If they can do this with paper, imagine what they'd accomplish if they were actually threatened. The Galactic Military Academy had stood for 3,000 years, training the finest soldiers from 47 species. But perhaps, Karvoth thought as he watched the security footage again, it was humanity that would teach them what warfare truly meant. After all, any species that could sharpen paper into a blade would redefine the very concept of unarmed.